Oh, damn it. Hold on. Forgot something. Something I didn't think I'd be pulling out today. Oh, Tampa Bay. Oh, shoot. Tampa. I forgot. I didn't think I'd be pulling this out for us, but ooh. Nailed it. How we doing today? Welcome back to .NET Phillies. This thing is not as far back as I want it to be. Still, all these episodes later on this new set. I am, and that camera's messed up. Whatever. Future problem. I'll figure it out later. I feel like ever since like the basement like flooded, everything has kind of been like shifted over a little bit. But whatever, because you can kind of see like the edge. What is that there? Is that the paint? Oh yeah, it's yeah. Anyway, professional. Welcome back to .NET Phillies. What a weekend weekend. Middle of the week, kind of. I hope everybody had a very safe and happy 4th of July. I know I did. And, the Phillies did as well. They did the one thing I think a lot of us true Phillies fans thought they'd do, which was lose a series at home to one of the worst teams in the National League, only to follow it up by sweeping the best team in baseball. Because baseball, that's just how it works. You look at a guy, that's why baseball's the best sport. Look at a guy like Domingo Germán. His last 2 starts had 10 earned runs. Then he threw a perfect game. And then he got shelled in his last start. So baseball's weird, man. But that's what makes it the best. That's what makes it the best sport on planet Earth. Argue with a wall. Don't care. I do want to address kind of the elephant in the room about my last video and the aspect ratio. No idea what happened there. I tried fixing it in post-production in editing software. However, it didn't work because then the video became too big. Like, it wasn't the whole set. It was just my face. So I just said, screw it. I'll just release it with the bad aspect ratio. So I do apologize for that. But stuff happens. I have no way of knowing how the video is going to look once I finish recording it. And the episode was like 35 minutes long. And I really didn't want to. I never want to re-record something because I feel like it's a lot less genuine. This is my first, handoff reaction to the series of whatever it is. So a part of me wanted to re-record it. Another part of me just said, you know what? It is what it is. Technical difficulties happen. The stuff happens. I tried to fix it to no avail. So I do apologize for that. And thank you guys for watching that and sticking with it through the terrible aspect ratio. I'm recording this at 9:38 in the morning. Another morning pod because the series didn't wrap up till like 10 last night when in the extras. And I was out. With Ashlyn. We had a date night. So, podcast didn't take precedent then. So, but in today's episode, obviously we got headlines. We're going to go over the series against the Rays, another edition of Where Are They Now, followed by the series preview coming up against Miami. And before we get into any of that, I just want to remind you guys, August 10th, 6:40, we are having the .NET Phillies 1-year live stream extravaganza, in which I will be live reacting to the Phillies against the Nationals that night. I'm going to have my TV over here. It's just going to be basically this, me talking to you guys, doing commentary over the game, talking about the game, my opinions on the state of whatever. At that point, the trade deadline would have happened, so I can talk about, who the Phillies got, who they got rid of, and we'll go into all that fun stuff. So just want to remind you guys that is coming up. I'm looking very much forward to it. I'm a little nervous because I never really have done a lot of live stream stuff. When I was, a teenager, I used to do, like Twitch stuff, like playing like Call of Duty Ghosts and like stuff like that when the Xbox One first came out and it had Twitch integration. You use the Kinect as your webcam, so I was able to do like bad live streams. I got like 1 view or something like that. So it wouldn't be my first rodeo of doing a live stream, but just wanted to remind you guys, August 10th, 6:40, live stream extravaganza. I'm gonna post on my TikTok, on my Instagram, on my Facebook, all that stuff. So you guys can tune in and we can have some conversations. I get to talk to you guys get to talk to me. And I sound like an egotistical a-hole right now, but I just like talking to people. I like, having conversations about baseball and stuff. And it doesn't have to be Phillies related. If you're watching, it could be baseball related, I am a baseball fan overall. I'm not just a Phillies fan. So I will remind you guys, like I said in the last episode, I will remind you guys every single week that that's coming up, leading up to it. And again, I will be posting reminders and stuff. So look out for that. So let's get into it. Going to take a swig of coffee. Let's get to it. So in terms of headlines, there wasn't a lot going on in Phillies news. However, we did have a Noah Song update. Noah Song obviously is the Phillies Rule 5 pick from the Red Sox organization, who was widely regarded as a top prospect in the Red Sox organization, but obviously he was enlisted in the United States Navy. And I feel like he came back a year early than the Phillies thought he was going to. So I don't want to say he threw a wrench in their plans, but he kind of threw a wrench in their plans. But he had a rehab start, sat about 91 to 93, went an inning and a third, 1 hit, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. So good to see him. He's going to have to be on the big league roster soon if we want to keep him on the Phillies. I hope we do, because he's a solid arm to have, especially with, Painter coming back and the emergence of Chris Sanchez. And we'll get into him once we talk about game 3, because he has been blowing me away with the amount of quality starts he's been putting together. But I think if the Phillies are going to use Noah Song, they kind of have to. I don't know if it will be as a long reliever. I don't know if it'll be a piggyback. I don't know if it'll be a full-blown starter. We'll just have to wait and see, because they kind of need to make a decision soon about him. So look out for news about that. And then my final piece of headlines is Craig Kimbrel, reliever of the month for June, 13 innings pitched to an 0.69 ERA. And this dates back to May. He gave up that walk-off grand slam to Muncy, and since then he's had like a 1.1 ERA or something like that. It's like something stupid. He, ever since being put into the closer position full time, and I think the numbers back this up in his career, what inning he's pitching in. I should have looked this up. I do apologize. I'm pretty sure outside of the 9th inning, he has like an awful ERA. And obviously, there's exceptions. Closers blow leads all the time. Even the best. Mariano Rivera blew saves all the time. Trevor Hoffman or what's a deep cut here? Hector Neris, a great closer, blew leads all the time. We all know that. But what he's been able to do, not only in the month of June, but beyond that, he has been exactly what the Phillies hoped he would be when we signed him. And, I've been impressed. You can go back and look at the old pods. Like, I was worried about Kimbrel because, like I said, and I sound like a broken record here, the Phillies lose out on this deal every time. Ian Kennedy, Jerice Familia, Brad Hand, Brandon Kinsler, Matt Moore. Give me one more. Come on. Give me one more. I got nothing. But point is, they lose out on this signing a lot, or this trade a lot. And Craig Kimbrel has been as advertised, if not better than what they thought they would be by signing him. He's kind of taking over that closer's role, and he's been locked down. And that gives Thompson some leeway. My apologies. that gives Rob Thompson leeway to use guys like Sir Anthony when he's healthy, like Alvarado, like even Marte has been pretty good of late, or Vasquez or Strom or Soto. Use these guys in fireman roles. Like, say, I know I just talked about him, but Chris Sanchez goes into like the fifth inning and you have runners on second and third, one out. If you need to lock down that inning, say you have a 1-run lead and you need to make sure that 1-run lead gets sustained, you can go to Soto, go to Alvarado, go to Sir Anthony, because in the ninth inning, Craig Kimbrell is going to lock it down. And he has proven that he can lock it down. I'm not going to say he's back to being the Craig Kimbrell of old, but he's been a sustainable part of this bullpen and a very productive member of this bullpen. Yes, the pitch clock violations are getting ridiculous. Yet another one yesterday. But if I don't care if you have 10 or 15 pitch clock violations, you're pitching to an 0.6 ERA. You can do whatever the hell you want, So shout out to Craig Kimbrell. I was wrong about him. I'm glad I was wrong about him, because that means he's been a very productive member of this 2023 Phillies bullpen, which has been excellent. I think according to Fangraphs, the Phillies have the best pitching rotation in baseball and the second best bullpen in baseball. And that's to look at a team like the Atlanta Braves. I'll have to double check that. I'm not 100% sure. I saw it on Twitter, so I don't know the legitimacy of it. No, we won't go into what's going on with Twitter, but so I don't know exactly the legitimacy of it, so take it with a grain of salt, but I wouldn't be surprised if that data is backed up by that, because the Phillies rotation has been locked down, even with Nola struggles, with Wheeler struggles. The guys like Ranger and Taiwan and Chris Sanchez have picked up those guys, and gives the bullpen a lot of breaks. I think they had like the third fewest innings pitched in June, the Phillies bullpen. So that's a good thing. When you see teams with low bullpen usage, it means their starters are going deep. It means they're winning ball games based on the starters. I feel like every single game, the Philly starters are going 6, 7, 7 1/3, 8 innings at any given day. That gives a guy like Alvarado a day off, or guys like Soto, depending on how big the lead is, then you can use a guy like Hoffman or Vasquez, one of your still good guys, but not your dogs out there, not your Sotos, your Alvarados, Sir Anthony, not your Kimbrels. You don't have to use those guys when you have those guys to subsidize them. Oh, Lord, my apologies. But it's great to see that Kimbrel has been a big surprise in this Phillies bullpen. So let's get to the Rays series. Game 1 felt like a scheduled loss. You had Aaron Nola versus Zach Eflin, and I want to start with what they wrote on the back of their jerseys. Obviously, Eflin and Nola are lifelong friends, not lifelong, but they grew up in the Phillies organization together. They got to the World Series last year together. And obviously Eflin left in free agency, signed that 3-year deal with the Rays. And I knew Eflin was going to be great on the Rays. You could tell with the movement, that's exactly the DNA that a Rays pitcher, with the Rays C, and the DNA of that, his movement and everything like that. So I knew Eflin was going to be a really, really solid pickup for the Rays, and anybody the Rays pick up, there's a reason for it. But on the back of Eflin's jersey that he gave to Nola, it said, "You'll never know how much your friendship means to me." And that literally made my heart so happy and sad that he wasn't re-signed by this team. But at the same time, I was very happy we won this game, because Nola dialed in. He stepped up. I mean, my player, the Phillies won 3-1. My player of the game was Aaron Nola. I bashed him, and I feel like all of Philadelphia has bashed this guy, because he's been a massive disappointment. And despite that, the Phillies are still winning ball games when he's pitching. And I think the biggest thing is the Phillies didn't give him a 5-0 lead. I think that's what they should avoid. The whole thing with Nola for a while was he doesn't get run support. I figured out why, because the second you give him run support, he gives it right up. So keep Nola in close tested games, because he'll strive. But He went 7 1/3, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and 12 strikeouts. This was one of the best Nola starts I've seen in a long time. And I know anytime Nola has a start like this, I always look back to that 2018 Boston Red Sox start, which I think is the best start of Aaron Nola's career. Look at the numbers, like his stuff was jumping. He was fantastic that game. And this mimicked that. You go into a team, you go into Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay Rays are the best team in baseball. And as a team, the Phillies are hot. The Phillies have been playing great baseball. They're a good baseball team. They're figuring stuff out. Everything's kind of evening out in terms of their roster and everything. And we'll get, to the hitting aspect of things, which I didn't think would be their problem this year, but that's another subject for later down the road. You go into this going against Eflin, which, Philly fan know, the revenge games for these guys are great. And you go in there and not only win, but your ace goes out there and shoves. And that's, like I said, it mimics the Red Sox start from years ago when Nola just dialed it up. And that's what he did. He came in clutch. His curveball was moving. And I knew this game was going to be special. So I was down in North Wildwood, as a lot of Philadelphia people were. And I was at a bar. And they were watching the game, and the Phillies go up 1-0 on the Bohm RBI double in the second. And, after that first inning, when Eflin just mowed down the first 3 hitters, I'm like, oh, Christ alive, it's going to be a massacre. But then Bohm had that RBI double, and I'm like, all right, okay, all right. Nola, and as soon as Nola had a shutdown inning, I'm like, oh, I'm like, he's on today. He's on today. So you had it was just great to see that from Aaron Nola, and I really hope that in the series, in his next start against Miami, he is able to channel that a little more. And I'll talk about that late. Well, I might as well talk about it. No, I'll talk about it later. I think they should skip Aaron Nola's start in Miami, depending on how that series goes. I think if they take the first 2 games, I'm doing a bullpen game. You're going into the All-Star break. You get like 5 days off. I'm really just doing a bullpen game, and I understand you can't throw those games away, but I think Nola having that extra rest will be good for him, unless, Topper probably isn't going to do that. He's probably going to leave him out there in Miami, and we'll see how he does, as long as he doesn't have a 5-0 lead. So we'll see. I don't know. Regardless, yeah, he kind of worked out of trouble in third. He had first and third, 1 out. Was able to work out of that jam. And then you had a lot of defensive highlights by Turner and Marsh, both with really good plays in that 5th inning. The Phillies defense has kind of been a disappointment. You look mainly to left field with Kyle Schwarber. He's been atrocious in the outfield. Marsh has been a little disappointing, but I think that's just because he has to make up so much ground, because Schwarber is so terrible out there. So I feel like he feels the need that he needs to make up all the ground in the world. But it's, some defensive thing. And then you have Bryson, I was about to say Boston Scott. Bryson Stott had an RBI single in the 7th, and Harper had an RBI single in the 8th to make it 2-0 and then 3-0 on the Harper. Harper didn't hustle on this play. I think he thought it was either out, or he thought the ball was going to be caught, but that's unlike Harper. He usually hustles out the box. So interesting to see. You can just tell the power struggle is getting into his head now. And I think this week off is going to be really, really good for him, not only for rest wise, but just to kind of reset and kind of like take it back. Because if you get Harper rolling and Turner rolling, this offense is going to be a juggernaut, because they're doing all of this without their 2 highest paid players right now. So, well, not to say Harper's inept up there. He's still hitting over 300, but it's just the power isn't there. But then you had Wander Franco in the 8th. They sent Nola back out for the 8th, and Nola hung a curveball to him and gave up a home run. And then Craig Kimbrell came in and slammed the door. Alvarado picked up the 8th inning. So you had pitching-wise, I mentioned Nola. You had Alvarado, 2/3 of an inning, 1 hit, no earned runs, no walks, no strikeouts. And then Kimbrell, an inning and 2 strikeouts to close the door. And It was just solid. It was a solid game of baseball. They looked like they were on par with the Rays. And I've said this for years about the Phillies is no matter what team or how bad they're playing right now, they will always go toe to toe with the best teams, which I didn't know. It just doesn't make sense because we can see the competence of the team. We can see how good they can be. And it's just frustrating when they can't, exercise that consistently against like bad teams. They don't play up to their opponent or play down to their opponent, I should say, when playing a team like, I mean, yes, they swept the Tigers, but playing teams like the Nationals or like, the Reds are actually good. But teams like that, teams they should beat up on, I feel like they never do. And that's something that changed last year, which was good to see. So they came in, took one game, and I was happy with that. Anything after this was just gravy. I said in the last episode, I said, just take a game down there and anything extra is just house money at that point. And then we get to game two. The Phillies won 8-4. My player of the game was Bryson Stott. Bryson had a great game. It went 4 for 5. And Bryson Stott should be an all-star. Let's be honest here. I wouldn't be shocked if he was added to the all-star roster. He's hitting over 300. He's playing excellent defense. He is just the typical second baseman that you look for, the typical all-star second baseman. High average, not a lot of pop. There's a little pop there. Gold glove caliber defense. And obviously the guys who are in the all-star game now deserve to be. I mean, Luis Arias is hitting over 380 at this point. I don't know if he's still at 400. I haven't heard a lot of news, so it means maybe he's not around 400 anymore. But you have that guy, and then you have obviously Albies, who is an all-star caliber second baseman, and whomever else is in reserve. But I wouldn't be shocked if one of those guys backs out, or an infielder in general backs out, and Bryson Stott is added to the all-star roster. So look out for that. But this game, kind of the story, in my opinion, was Taijuan Walker's resilience. Taijuan didn't have his best stuff, and you could see that. I mean, he had 5 walks in this game. I'm not concerned about that because he was still able to battle through 7 innings, even giving up 5 walks and, 8 strikeouts. It's a lot of pitches, and he was able to get through. I thought this would have been the humbling Taijuan Walker start, because in the 3rd inning, he's given up 4 already. And Topper trusted his guy, said, hey, go back out there, keep battling, keep hustling. And he did, and he was able to muster up for 7 innings, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 5 walks, 8 strikeouts. Not bad. You had the Brandon Lau home RBI double in the 1st. And then the Phillies answered right back in the 2nd. It was a bullpen game for the Rays. You had Bohm and Hall both with RBI singles to tie it. You had Francisco Mejia RBI single in the 2nd to give the Rays the lead. Then Phillies, what did they do? They battled right back. JT RBI single in the 3rd. Then you had Luke Raley hit a solo home run in the 3rd to make it 4-3. So it was a lot of ping-ponging back and forth early on. And then Trey in the 5th to lead off with a solo home run off the foul pole and left. And then you had Stott with an RBI single in the 5th to give the Phillies a lead. Casty with a solo home run in the 6th. And then Marsh had an RBI single in the 7th to make it 8-4 to make that the final. So excellent offense for the Phillies. And again, what makes this team so frustrating is you see the ability for them to do it, and they just never are able to consistently put it through. This reminds me of when they were rolling at the beginning of June. They were timely hitting, and I just hope that this is sustainable. And I hope you stick with it because it's just, we see what this team can be and the ability of this team when everybody's clicking on all cylinders. And obviously baseball teams, nobody ever clicks on all cylinders at the same time. There's always one guy who's slumping or whatever. But if this team has enough guys on it to get through that, and this was a great example of that. Them just battling right back, not being down, picking up their starter in Taijuan. So Stott went 4 for 5, JT went 3 for 4, Bohm had a few hits. Like, this offense is there. It's able to battle with the best of them because this Rays bullpen is no joke. We were able to take advantage of a very, very good Rays bullpen. And, shout out to Kevin Cash for rolling out 2 bullpen games back to back against the Phillies. So shout out to him. I'm glad his managerial blunders happened against us and nobody else. I mean, the Phillies put up 17 hits against them. That's no joke. We've seen Phillies have high hit totals and low runs before. We've seen it all season, but this was like a tactical bam, 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 just hit him and hit him well. And the approaches were good and it was great. You had Soto, an inning, a hit, no one runs, and a strikeout. Hoffman to close the game with an inning, a hit, and 2 strikeouts. So it was a professional win. And it's something I did want to take note of, and Jack Fritz mentioned it. It was either High Hopes or WYP. He said the Phillies changed something with Soto, and ever since they did, he's been lights out. So Gregory Soto has when he arrived at the Phillies, had 2 different pitching like mechanics. Had his like normal one where he would wind up and kind of go back and a little straightforward. He then had one where it's kind of a sidestep, like just kind of instead of being very mechanically like hit, and then fire, he's just one fluid motion of just firing. They ditched the first one and he is now sidestep only. And since doing that, he has been lights out. He had like a 1-something ERA in June. Let me look up actually what his ERA was in. Let me see what his ERA was in June, because I was like, how good has Gregory Soto been? And obviously his usage has been a little spotty. But I think it's because they were working on that sidestep thing. I think now it's making sense why they were being so cautious with Gregory Soto in not using him as much. Let me see. So game logs in the month of June, he had a 0.96 ERA, and that's coming off of May when he had a 9.64. His ERA right now is all the way down to 4.18. So yeah, Gregory Soto has been awesome, and it's great to see. It's great to see Greg Soto being the guy that we thought he was going to be, and I think he's one of the more underrated pitchers on the Phillies bullpen. And it's kind of an embarrassment of riches because the Phillies are so used to having like 1 or 2 guys to just ride on to be their dudes. Last year we had Alvarado and Sir Anthony. Year before that, you had Hector. And the year before that, it was 2020, and it was a freaking disaster. 2019, same thing. You had Alvarado, or not Alvarado, excuse me. You had Hector, and Sir Anthony was injured that year. Who was the other bullpen guy in 2019? I guess no, that was 21. Regardless, it was Hector for a lot of years, and then you move on. I guess Luis Garcia for a little bit of that, but now the Phillies have guys they can just go to, which is great. But then we get to, in my opinion, the most impressive game of this series. And that was the game 3. My players of the game is Chris Sanchez and the Phillies bullpen. The pitching was unreal in this game. The Phillies didn't allow a hit to the Rays. After the 6th inning, the Phillies bullpen didn't even allow a hit to the Tampa Bay Rays. Didn't allow a hit to them. But the scoring got started with, and this, I felt like after they took the first 2 games, I'm like, okay, they took 2 out of 3. This game is like a scheduled loss. We all have seen this game before. The offense doesn't show up and the Rays just kind of go off. That didn't happen, especially with a guy like Chris Sanchez, who I kind of want to talk about. Chris Sanchez has been electric for this team. Something that I was shocked, because Chris Sanchez has been come up in spot starts and he's been okay. But whatever they changed with him, he has that fastball changeup, just movement. I can't describe it. It's been unreal. He has like a 3 ERA in 5 starts. No, it hasn't been that long. Maybe 4 or 5 starts this year, but he's been awesome. He's been able to stabilize that 5th starter spot, at least until Painter's ready. Or if you don't believe in Painter or don't feel like Painter's doing it, just stick with Chris Sanchez. And at least until the trade deadline, he has been able to stabilize this bullpen a lot. I don't know if the Phillies are going to go after a starter at the trade deadline. I feel like they need a power bat more. It's going to be an interesting trade deadline for the Phillies, because I don't know if they're going to trust Derek Hall to be that power guy that they need, or if they're banking on Harper being able to put together a competent second half power-wise. So it's going to be interesting. In my opinion, I think they need a certified power bat like a CJ Crone or a, I know Paul Goldschmidt's name has been mentioned. And leading up to the trade deadline, I'll talk to a couple people to see if I can get them on to kind of talk about trade deadline stuff. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But at least, I don't think they need another starter. I think, a combination of Chris Sanchez and Andrew Painter and, maybe even Matt Strom if you need him to go back to be like 3 innings, kind of an opener kind of thing. Or I don't know what their plan is, but Chris Sanchez has definitely been a surprise. He's definitely stabilized this 5th starter spot a lot. So it's great to see that because that 5th starter spot was a hole. Bailey Falter was not exactly what I envisioned or the Phillies envisioned him being. You then had Dylan Covey out of there, which also Dylan Covey is still on this baseball team, which I don't know what in God's name they see in him for him to still be on this baseball team. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to come out and be like an Andrew Miller. I don't know. I don't know. And yes, I just compared Dylan Covey to Andrew Miller. Argue with your mama. But the scoring got started. You had Hall with a solo home run in the 5th, and then Isaac Paredes with a home run also in the 5th to make it 1-1. Alvarado, I am a little worried about. It just his stuff doesn't feel like it's biting as much. Yes, he's still being progressive and still being really good and still getting outs, but it just doesn't feel like it's like dominant Jose Alvarado. And I don't know if that's just him still working the rust out because, you get to the 8th inning there, strikes the first 2 guys out. And I'm like, okay, there's Jose Alvarado. Then he walks the next 2 and has that 11 pitch battle with Wander. So I don't know. It's just something to keep note of with Alvarado. Something just seems off with him a little bit. But I mean, if he's still getting outs, then whatever, I guess his strikeout to K ratio might be a little skewed if he's walking guys again, but just something to keep note of. I don't know if it's anything. I could be overthinking it, but it just doesn't feel like Alvarado is as dominant as he once was or has been. So just something to keep an eye on with him. And then we get to extra innings. You had a web gem from Alec Bowman. I kind of want to talk about Bomer for a second. Defensively, everybody talks about his offense and how let down they are from his offense from a power perspective. And I understand that. I was a guy I thought he was going to take a leap forward, hit 25, 30 home runs this year. And unless he like just dials it up in like August and just goes on like 15 home runs in 20 games, I don't see him doing that. But defensively, him going from an absolute liability at third base to borderline Gold Glover at third base needs to be studied. You got to look at the infield coaches for the Phillies to give credit to that. Bobby Dickerson, you got to give him credit there because Bohm made an absolute great play against a fast runner. It was kind of a check swing, starts running up, bare hands it, fires and laser over to Derek Hall and gets the out. So it was a web gem. So Bomer's defensive miscues, I feel like, are behind him. Obviously, players are going to make errors all the time. I have to look at his numbers defensively, but they have to be one of the most improved defensive players in recent memory, that I can think of. I feel like defense in the infield has always kind of been an issue for the Phillies, but that's neither here nor there. You then had, Marte had a clean inning. And then you get to the 11th inning, and I'm shocked. They went with Matt Strom in the 10th. And when the Phillies didn't score in the 10th with that ghost runner, I'm like, oh, well, it took 2 out of 3, whatever. Then Matt Strom is able to just get 2 strikeouts and a ground out to get out of the 10th. Big ball Strom. And then you get to the 11th. Garrett Stubbs took one for the team, gets nailed by a pitch, and I was ready to go to war. My guy is Garrett Stubbs. Everybody knows my guy is Garrett Stubbs. And you then he gets on, and then Schwarber did his best to ground into a double play. But he was able to squeak through for an RBI single, and then Turner had an RBI single to make it 3-1. Matt Strom gets to the 11th. They're going with him for 2 innings, which thank God, because T-Mac said Dylan Covey was warming up in the bullpen, and I said, "Oh, sweet merciful God, do not throw that idiot in there." Luckily, they went with Strom for an extra inning, and then you had first and second, 1 out. Wander was up, and I was so nervous because Matt Hartman texted me, and he's like, "Dude, you can only keep Wander Franco down for so long," and then he grounded into a game-ending double play to slam the door. And that's a sweep on the Tampa Bay Rays. No idea how they did it, but I'm glad they did. It was a great series. Everything worked. Pitching was fantastic. The offense did their job. They hit with runners in scoring position. They had clutch home runs. They battled back in that second game. And then you got to give credit to the bullpen. I mean, the bullpen in this game went, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 innings, no hits, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts against a Rays offense who is tops in the American League in every category. You just got to give them credit there. That was a big show me series, especially going into Tampa Bay, where that's been a house of horrors for them. No matter how bad the Rays are or have been, they've never been able to win there. And not only to go down there and win, but to go down there and sweep against the best team in the American League and one of the best teams in baseball. It was a great series. It was a great show me series. So looking ahead, you're going into Miami. We'll talk about that in a second. But we are now on to another edition of everybody's favorite show, the worst show on the internet. That's how bad it is. Where are they now? The worst show on the internet. My favorite segment in which we take a look down memory lane to look at the Phillies bullpen acquisitions and bullpen pieces of the last 5 years during the competitive era of Phillies baseball prior to the 2022 season. Let's get started. My first guy is a guy who is infamous in Phillies history as the guy who was brought in the 2018 season opener against the Atlanta Braves when Aaron Nola had like 10 pitches and Gabe Kapler decided to take him out and put in this particular pitcher, not only to put him in, but to put him in when he wasn't even warming up. I am, of course, talking about Hobie Milner. Hobie Milner was drafted by the Phillies in the 7th round of the 2012 MLB draft. He was then selected by the Cleveland Guardians, Indians at the time, in the 2016 Rule 5, but then was returned in 2017 because of the service time. And that's kind of ironic because we talked about Noah Song earlier in this episode. He then spent 2017 and half of 2018 with the Phillies. And in those games, he 36 innings, 36 hits, 11 earned runs, 19 walks, 26 strikeouts to a 2.75 ERA. You can see the glaring issue in his game was the walks. He was never able to find the strike zone very consistently, which led him to being DFA'd in 2018. And this is just filled with ironic because then he was traded to the Rays for cash consideration. He did not have a good tenure with the Tampa Bay Rays. Only pitched in 6 1/3 innings, 7 hits, 5 earned runs, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts. That's a 7.11 ERA. He then signed with the Angels in that COVID year, 13 innings, 13 hits, 12 earned runs, 6 walks, 13 strikeouts, 8.10 ERA. He then kind of found stability. He signed a minor league deal with the Milwaukee Brewers and has been on that team ever since for the past few seasons. And with the Milwaukee Brewers, he's pitched in 120 and 2/3 innings, 123 hits, 50 earned runs, 26 walks, 123 strikeouts. That's a 3.73 ERA. So you can see automatically that the walks was the main thing. They worked on his location. Because in 3 seasons with Milwaukee, he only has 7 more walks than his 36 innings he pitched with the Phillies. So, yeah, I'm happy for Hobie Milner. I always liked him. I thought he was a guy that could be a dude, but obviously Phillies had other plans for him. and then he's been kind of bouncing around. But like I said, he was able to find a home with the Milwaukee Brewers and finding success. So I'm very happy for him. I always like when we look back at these guys and they found a little bit of success, but a lot of these guys, the success was already prior to them coming to the Phillies. Yeah. The next guy I also had high hopes for because of just the way he looked. I thought he was going to be an electric factory, had the Wild Thing vibe to him. And I think as soon as I said that, everybody knows who I'm speaking of. You had the long hair, you had the glasses, you had the 65, 64. He looked better with 65, in my opinion. That is, of course, J.D. Hammer. That's a baseball name right now, J.D. Hammer. J.D. Hammer was drafted by the Rockies in the 24th round of the 2016 MLB draft. He then was traded to the Phillies alongside Alejandro Requena and Jose Gomez for Pat Neshek and cash in 2017. Then he made his major league debut in 2019. He then spent 2019 to 2021 with the Phillies. Did not appear in a game in 2020, however. And I kept saying that because his 2019 was not awful. Like, he was pretty okay in 2019. And, when the Phillies were going through the struggles of the 2020 season, I was like, why in God's name is JD Hammer not on this roster? But regardless, his time with the Phillies, 39 innings pitched, 36 hits, 19 earned runs, 23 walks, 35 strikeouts to a 4.38 ERA. He then he elected free agency after the 2021 season. He then went back to the team that drafted him. He signed a minor league contract with the Colorado Rockies in 2022. He spent the entire season in the minors, 47 innings, 52 hits, 31 earned runs, 30 walks, 47 strikeouts to 5.94 ERA. So not great for JD Hammer. And then he was released by the Rockies. He now currently is having a very good season for the Lake Erie Crushers of the Frontier League. I was able to find his stats on Baseball Reference for the Lake Erie Crushers. Currently, 34 innings pitched, 23 hits, 10 earned runs, 15 walks, 32 strikeouts. That is a 2.65 ERA. So kind of similar to Hobie Milner. The walks are still a bit of an issue for him. But that's a really good. I'm very happy that he's finding success in that league. And who knows, maybe a minor league team will or a major league team will look at that and try to sign him, obviously, because he has big league experience. So we'll have to see. I just have a gut feeling it's not the last we've seen of JD Hammer in the big leagues. He pegs me as looks like an Angels guy. JD Hammer seems like an Angels guy. They'll look at this and be like, we could turn him into something. So JD Hammer to the Angels, book it. My last guy was kind of a disappointment. I had kind of a draft bust to some, to me included. That is, of course, Adonis Medina. He was kind of an untouchable trade piece in 2017 when the Phillies were looking to get better, and he kind of looked like he was going to be the future of the Phillies, and that never panned out, unfortunately. He was signed by the Phillies in 2014 as an international free agent. He had high praise throughout his minor league career. Like I said, Adonis Medina was supposed to be the next guy for the Phillies. Never was. He made his major league debut during that 2020 season, and then he spent 2020 and 2021 with the Phillies in a minimum sample size, 11 and 2/3 innings, 12 hits, 5 earned runs, 7 walks, 10 strikeouts to a 3.86 ERA. So not awful. He then was DFA'd by the Phillies in 2021. He was picked up by Pittsburgh and then traded very soon after to the Mets in 2022. And with the Mets, he was not that great. 23 and 2/3 innings, 30 hits, 16 earned runs, 6 walks, 17 strikeouts to a 6.08 ERA. So not good for Adonis Medina. He elected free agency. He then signed a minor league deal with the Milwaukee Brewers. However, he was soon released. He then signed with the Kia Tigers and the KBO. And with the Tigers, he pitched 58 innings, 64 hits, 39 earned runs, 29 walks, 36 strikeouts. That is a 6.05 ERA. And actually, a few days ago, he was actually released by the Kia Tigers. So he is now an international free agent once more. So that's unfortunate for Adonis Medina, a guy with such high praise and high, guy who thought he was going to be the next guy. Unfortunately, all came kind of crashing down into a hard reality. So we'll see what is next for Adonis Medina. So that thus concludes another edition of Where Are They Now? We're show on the internet. And now to wrap up, we have the series preview against the Miami Marlins, the second place Miami Marlins. Like, damn, little deceptive. And I know I'm going to eat my words on this because they're probably going to either get swept or lose 2 out of 3. But look at the Marlins' deeper stats. They've been very lucky of recently. They've been playing a lot of bad teams, winning a lot of one-run games against these teams. And I just think eventually it's going to break. They have a negative run differential. The Phillies just got over their negative run differential, I believe. But, it just doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't seem sustainable. But then at the same time, neither did the Phillies' success last year, and we saw what happened with them. But the Marlins are no slouch, especially going into Miami. It's always been a house of horrors. But so far, the Phillies have conquered a lot of house of horrors. Outside of the Rangers, we still have not conquered that house of horror, but we conquered Chicago. We conquered Tampa Bay. Where else did we go? Conquered Atlanta a little bit. Still haven't conquered New York with the Mets. But this is next on the list of conquering House of Horrors. We have Game 1, Zach Wheeler versus Sandy Alcantara, Ranger Suarez versus Braxton Garrett in Game 2, and to wrap it up, I mentioned Nola going against Jesus Luzardo. Carry momentum, try to take a game or 2 down there, just end on a high note going into the All-Star break. And I hope these players don't come out flat because the All-Star break is right here. It starts on Monday. So I really hope that they carry momentum with them into this series. So we'll just have to wait and see and keep our fingers crossed. But that's going to do it for me today. I just want to remind you before I go, August 10th, 6:40, the 1-year live stream extravaganza will be happening here on YouTube, and look forward to that. And again, I will be posting updates all the time leading up to that. I'm very excited for it. So hope you guys are too. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, follow all socials down below. And I will see you guys on Sunday. See you.